The whole thing began when I was 16. 2 days before Thanksgiving, Mom broke her wrist. From her recliner, groggy on pain meds, she announced, "Sarah can take care of it." Sure, I'd always helped her. Peeling potatoes, setting the table. But that was a far cry from pulling together a feast for 23 people, with no instructions and no warning. Somehow, I pulled it off. I stayed up until 3 in the morning, cried over a batch of burnt rolls, and managed to put food on the table that was at least edible, if not impressive. Everyone raved. "Sarah did such a wonderful job," they said. "You're so lucky to have such a capable daughter." Mom beamed like she had trained me for this moment. Dad gave me a proud nod. Then came the fateful line. "Next year, we'll let Sarah handle everything. She clearly has a gift." I was exhausted, frazzled, and had missed the holiday completely, but the praise felt good. Being needed felt like being loved. That was 18 years ago. And every Thanksgiving since, I've been the one expected to cook the family's giant holiday meal. What started as a one-time emergency became a permanent assignment. The guest list grew. First 23, then over 30 as cousins married and had kids. But my role never changed. It became Sarah's Thanksgiving. People bragged about my stuffing and my gravy. They put in special requests. They brought friends who wanted to try the famous meal. Each year, the pressure to keep up my reputation only grew. No one ever truly helped. They'd make token offers. "Let me know if you need anything," but vanished the moment I actually asked. Sometimes they'd drift into the kitchen, sneak bites, make useless comments, then scatter if I suggested they chop vegetables or stir a pot. "We don't want to get in your way," became their standard excuse. "You're just so good at it, we'd only mess it up." The logistics alone were crushing. Cooking for 30 people meant multiple grocery runs with meticulous lists, days of prep work, and carefully timed cooking schedules to juggle oven and stovetop space. Thanksgiving Day itself was a 12-hour marathon. While everyone else lounged with wine, watched football, or played with the kids, I was chained to the kitchen. I missed conversations, games, family moments. I ate standing up at the counter while washing dishes long after everyone else was done. And then came the critiques disguised as helpful suggestions. "The turkey was a little dry last year. Maybe cut back on the salt in the stuffing this time. Aunt Marie's rolls were better, but yours are fine." I wasn't treated like family. I was treated like catering staff. By my mid-20s, the physical strain was brutal. Cooking for that many people took professional-level stamina. I'd collapse into bed Thanksgiving night, drained and resentful, while everyone else floated away full and happy. Friends invited me to their Thanksgivings, but I always declined. "I can't. I'm cooking for my family." They'd ask, "Why doesn't everyone just bring a dish? Or can't someone else cook?" Those ideas never crossed my mind. My family had made it clear. Thanksgiving was my duty. Any hint of change was met with horror. But it wouldn't be the same. "You're so much better at it than anyone else. It's tradition." Their tradition was having me slave away so they could relax. College gave me a brief reprieve. I finally had a valid excuse to miss a few holidays. But even then, the phone calls came. Requests for recipes, complaints that Thanksgiving wasn't the same without my cooking. The guilt trips were relentless. I was told I was letting the family down by chasing my education. Once I graduated, the break ended. I was back on full-time Thanksgiving duty, only now with higher expectations. "You learned so much in college. This should be even easier for you now." My career didn't matter. My relationships didn't matter. My desire for an actual holiday didn't matter. What mattered was keeping their perfect Thanksgiving alive. The breaking point didn't happen overnight. It built over years. Each Thanksgiving piled on more stress, more demands, less gratitude. I was treated less like family and more like a personal chef. 3 years ago, my cousin showed up with her new boyfriend, who turned out to be a ridiculously picky eater. She handed me a list of his allergies and dislikes, expecting me to adjust the entire menu for a man I'd never met. When I suggested he could bring something for himself or just eat what was available, she was scandalized. "Sarah, don't be difficult. It's Thanksgiving. Just make sure there's something he can eat." 2 years ago, my brother's wife went gluten-free. She expected me to prepare separate versions of every dish. When I explained how much extra work that would take, she accused me of being unsupportive of her health choices. Then last year, the final straw. 3 days before Thanksgiving, Dad casually handed me a list of 32 names. Some people are bringing friends, he explained. I told them you wouldn't mind. I stood there in my kitchen. I stared at the list, running through the extra groceries, the prep time, and the stress it would take. To make it work, I'd have to redo all my plans, buy more food, and somehow stretch the same oven and schedule to serve 8 additional guests. I do mind, I said softly. What? I mind. I can't cook for 32 people with only 3 days' notice. Dad looked at me like he didn't understand. Sarah, you've always managed whatever we've asked. What's different this time? What was different? I was 34 years old. I'd spent 18 Thanksgivings in the kitchen while everyone else enjoyed themselves. I'd never had a single holiday that felt restful with my own family, and I was worn out from being treated like it was my job. I need help, I told him. Real help. Not people standing around pretending to pitch in while doing nothing. Well, you know how it is, he said. Everyone has their own way of doing things. It's just easier if you take care of it. Easier for who? I asked. Because it sure wasn't easier for me. That Thanksgiving fell apart. I was overwhelmed, tense, and resentful. The food turned out fine, but I spent the day snapping at people. At one point, I hid in the pantry and cried while the turkey rested. I put dinner on the table with swollen eyes and a forced smile, then shut myself in my room afterward. Several relatives commented on my attitude problem, saying I was making too much fuss about cooking. Their solution wasn't to share the load. It was for me to handle stress better. By January, I was in therapy. I needed to understand why something I supposedly chose to do made me feel angry and trapped. My therapist asked the hard questions. Do you even like cooking for your family? I used to, I admitted. Back when it was once in a while and felt optional. Now it's an expectation I can't get out of. What if you said no? They'd be upset, guilt me, and blame me if Thanksgiving was ruined. And if it was ruined, then they'd have to figure something else out. Life would go on. What do you want Thanksgiving to look like? I wanted to enjoy the day. To spend time with family instead of working for them. To feel, just once, like a guest in my own holiday. My therapist helped me see that I was caught in a cycle of people-pleasing that had slid into exploitation. My family didn't see my effort as a gift anymore. It was simply expected. We practiced setting boundaries and deflecting guilt trips. I learned the difference between helping family and being used by them. By October, I had decided this would be my last year as head chef. I'd cook one final meal, then announce my retirement and propose other options for the future. But as Thanksgiving drew near, the old pressures piled up. Dad gave me the guest list, 30 people this time, assuming, as always, that I'd take care of it. Mom added her special requests and dietary rules. Relatives called to insist on their favorite dishes. The assumption was so ingrained that, before I realized it, I was falling back into old patterns. I started planning menus and writing shopping lists even though I'd promised myself I was done. 18 years of habit was hard to undo. 3 days before the holiday, standing in the grocery store, it hit me. I was about to spend hundreds of dollars and countless hours preparing a meal I didn't even want to cook, for people who wouldn't truly value it, during a holiday I deserved to enjoy instead of endure. I left the cart and went home. That night, I called my best friend from college. Got plans for Thanksgiving? Yeah, flying to Portland to see my sister. Can I come? She was surprised but thrilled. Of course. But what about your family's big dinner? Weren't you cooking for, like, 50 people? 30, I corrected. And no, not this year. The last-minute ticket was expensive, but it felt like buying my freedom. I packed fast, left my kitchen untouched, and braced myself for the inevitable fallout. On Wednesday night, Dad called with his usual instructions. Cooking starts at 4 a.m., right? Oh, and Uncle Bob's bringing a vegetarian girlfriend, so make sure you've got options for her. Also, Cousin Jennifer's kids are in picky eater phases, so maybe keep plain pasta ready as backup. Actually, Dad, I interrupted. I won't be cooking tomorrow. There was a long silence. What do you mean? I mean, I'm not making Thanksgiving dinner. I'm going out of town. Sarah, this isn't funny. 30 people are. They were expecting dinner, and suddenly 30 people had to scramble for another plan. But I wasn't walking away from the family. I was stepping back from being their unpaid chef. The argument escalated fast. My dad went from angry, to frantic, to furious again. He threw guilt trips, accusations, and desperate pleas at me. How could I be so selfish? Didn't I care about family? What were they supposed to do now? I kept calm, just as my therapist had coached me. I told him, you could order catering. You could make it potluck. You could all go to a restaurant. Or ask someone else to host. Families all across America manage Thanksgiving without one person carrying the entire burden. But you're so good at it, he protested. Everyone's counting on you. Everyone was counting on me to give up my holiday for their convenience. That wasn't fair, and I was finished with it. I ended the call before he could reply. Almost instantly, my phone buzzed nonstop with calls and texts from relatives. Dad had already rallied. I switched it off. At 3 a.m. on Thanksgiving morning, instead of pulling out the turkey, I was in an Uber heading to the airport. Instead of juggling oven schedules, I was sipping coffee and settling into a window seat. Instead of surrendering another holiday to obligation, I was finally choosing myself. The guilt hit hard as the plane took off. 18 years of conditioning doesn't vanish in a night. I imagined the chaos at home. 30 guests arriving to find an empty kitchen. A part of me wanted to turn back and fix what I'd started. But a larger part felt free in a way I hadn't been in decades. Portland was gorgeous. My friend's sister hosted a small gathering, just 8 people, everyone bringing something. I brought wine and helped clean up. After dinner, we played board games, went for walks, and actually enjoyed being together instead of silently consuming a meal one person had slaved over. It was the most peaceful Thanksgiving I'd had since I was 15. When I finally powered on my phone Friday, there were 47 messages. They ranged from furious, to wounded, to manipulative. From the fragments, I pieced together the disaster. The family had shown up expecting the usual spread. When they realized I wasn't there and nothing was prepared, panic broke out. Some stormed off to find restaurants. Most were closed. Others raided my parents' pantry. A few hit grocery stores for pre-made food. They ended up with a patchwork meal. Store-bought turkey, instant mashed potatoes, canned veggies, frozen pies. According to many texts, it was a complete disaster. The worst Thanksgiving ever. Some relatives blamed me outright. Others said I'd abandoned the family. But hidden in the anger were a few messages that gave me hope. My cousin Mark, I never realized how much work you did. Sorry we took you for granted. My Aunt Linda, I understand why you needed space. We should have helped more. My brother, Mom and Dad are furious, but I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. And my teenage niece. It was actually kind of fun figuring it out like a cooking adventure. Uncle Dave burned the rolls though, and Grandpa complained the whole time. Over the next weeks, the family shifted. Some relatives stayed bitter and cut me off completely. They had only ever valued me for what I provided. Others began to see how unfair the old setup was. They apologized and invited me to smaller gatherings where cooking was shared. My parents took the longest. They were embarrassed about the chaos and blamed me for making them look bad. It took tough conversations before they understood my side. We never asked you to cook for everyone, my mom said once. You didn't have to ask, I told her. You expected it. I delivered, for 18 years. But you seem to enjoy it. I enjoyed being useful and appreciated. I didn't enjoy losing every Thanksgiving while everyone else relaxed. We didn't know you felt that way. And that was the hardest part. Realizing they truly hadn't thought about my experience. To them, I was just the family caretaker. They never questioned if it was fair, because it worked for them. Eventually things changed. Thanksgiving became potluck. Everyone pitched in appetizers, sides, desserts. The host each year handled the turkey and coordination. The meals weren't as polished as my solo productions, but they were far more enjoyable. People valued the food more because they'd contributed. Kids learned to help. And most importantly, I got to be part of the family instead of chained to the kitchen. I could watch football, play with the kids, sit and laugh with relatives. I could finally enjoy the holiday. 3 years later, our Thanksgivings are smaller but warmer. Some relatives stopped coming when they couldn't get their perfect free meal. But those who stayed genuinely wanted connection. The focus shifted from consumption to togetherness. I still cook, but only as one contributor. I make dishes I like, eat them while they're still hot, and actually sit down at the table. The Portland trip became a yearly tradition too. Sometimes we visit her family, sometimes we explore new cities. It's my reminder that holidays can be joyful, not exhausting. Now my family understands that my presence is a choice, not a guarantee. That makes our time together more meaningful, because it's based on love, not obligation. Looking back, I see that my so-called rebellion wasn't abandoning family. It was saving it. The old system was broken. By refusing to play along, I forced change. The ones who cared adapted. The ones who only valued my labor showed their true colors. Either way, I learned who my real family was. These days, I'm thankful for many things. Relatives who love me as a person, not a provider. The courage to set boundaries. The freedom to enjoy holidays instead of endure them. And the understanding that choosing yourself isn't selfish, it's essential. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for your family is refuse to be taken advantage of. It pushes everyone toward healthier, more genuine relationships. My kitchen is no longer a cage, and Thanksgiving is no longer a burden. That's worth more than the most flawless feast.